A man lies in a stone cell high in the mountains of eastern France. It is winter, 1803. The air is so cold that his breath freezes against the walls. Just months earlier, he commanded an army of tens of thousands. He negotiated as an equal with the generals of France, Britain, and Spain. Now he has almost nothing, no army, no title, not even a fire to warm his hands. His name is Toussaint Louverture. And the empire he built out of chains is about to outlive him. To understand how a man born into slavery came to shake the foundations of the French Empire, we have to go back to the colony where his story began, Saint-Domingue, the wealthiest colony on earth, built entirely on human suffering. In the late 1700s, Saint-Domingue, the French colony that today is Haiti, produced more sugar and coffee than any other place in the world. That wealth came from enslaved labor. Hundreds of thousands of Africans were forced to work the plantations under brutal conditions. Historians estimate that a large share of enslaved people on the island died within a few years of arrival, worked to exhaustion in the tropical heat. It was, in the words of many scholars, one of the most violent slave systems ever created. Toussaint was born around 1743 on the Breda plantation, enslaved from birth. Unlike most enslaved people, he learned to read. Some evidence suggests he was influenced by Catholic teaching and by African spiritual traditions carried by his father, who may have come from a noble family in West Africa. By the time he was in his 40s, he had gained his freedom, a rare and fragile status in colonial society. He worked for a time as a coachman and reportedly gained some knowledge of herbal medicine. Nothing about his early life predicted what came next. In August 1791, enslaved people across the colony rose up in a coordinated revolt. Plantations burned across the night sky. It was one of the largest slave uprisings in recorded history. And it would not stop. Toussaint did not lead this first uprising. He joined it soon after, already in his late 40s, older than most rebel commanders, but sharper in strategy than almost anyone around him. Here is the first real turn in the story. Toussaint did not simply fight. He organized. He trained fighters in disciplined military formation, something the colonial powers had never expected from a former slave. He studied the tactics of European armies and adapted them to the terrain of the island. Within a few years, colonial officials who once dismissed him were writing anxious letters about his growing power. This is where the story becomes something bigger than an uprising. France, Britain, and Spain were all fighting for control of the region, each hoping to use Saint-Domingue's chaos to their advantage. Toussaint understood something none of them expected: he could use their rivalry against them. He fought first alongside Spanish forces, then switched to the French side in 1794. Then revolutionary France abolished slavery in its territories. It was a calculated decision, not a simple alliance. Abolition gave him a legal foundation to build on. And he intended to defend it completely. Consider the position Toussaint was in. He was now a general in the French army, commanding soldiers who had once been enslaved like him. Around him, British troops occupied parts of the island, hoping to restore slavery. Spanish forces still held territory nearby. And within the colony itself, free people of color, white planters, and formerly enslaved fighters were often working against each other. Toussaint had to hold together a fragile alliance while fighting a war on multiple fronts. By the late 1790s, he had done what seemed impossible. British forces withdrew in 1798, worn down by disease and years of costly fighting. Toussaint had effectively defeated one of the most powerful empires in the world. Let's pause here for a moment, because it's worth understanding just how remarkable this achievement was. This victory did not bring peace. It brought a new and more dangerous kind of power, the kind that draws the attention of people who cannot tolerate losing control. By 1801, Toussaint governed the colony almost as an independent state. He remained officially loyal to France. But he wrote a new constitution for Saint-Domingue that named him governor for life and permanently abolished slavery. He rebuilt the plantation economy. Though under conditions that historians still debate, some labourers were required to keep working the land, a policy meant to restore the shattered economy but one that also created new resentment among people who had only just tasted freedom. Toussaint's vision was complicated. He wanted economic survival and full black liberty at the same time. And holding those two goals together tested every part of his leadership. News of this new constitution reached Napoleon Bonaparte in France. And it struck a nerve. Napoleon had just taken power. He wanted to rebuild the French Empire in the Americas. And he had no intention of allowing a black general to govern a colony beyond his control. In late 1801, he sent one of the largest military expeditions France had ever assembled across the Atlantic, more than 20,000 soldiers, under the command of his brother-in-law, General Charles Leclerc. Their secret orders, historians have confirmed through surviving French documents, included the eventual restoration of slavery. What followed was one of the most brutal campaigns of the era. Leclerc's forces landed in early 1802. Some of Toussaint's own commanders, exhausted by years of war and unsure whom to trust, surrendered or switched sides. Toussaint fought on, using the same strategy that had defeated the British: retreat into the mountains, let disease and heat wear down the enemy, strike when the moment was right. For months, it worked. French losses to yellow fever and combat were staggering. But numbers alone were not the only weapon working against him. In June 1802, Toussaint agreed to peace talks with French General Jean-Baptiste Brunet, believing he had received guarantees of safety. It was a trap. He was seized, placed on a ship, and sent across the ocean to France, betrayed by the very negotiation process he had once used so skillfully against his enemies. If you find stories like this one, where courage collides with betrayal, pull you in the way it's pulling you in right now, you'll find more of these journeys waiting as we go on. Toussaint was imprisoned at Fort de Dieu, a cold, isolated fortress in the Jura Mountains near the Swiss border. The contrast could not have been sharper. A man who had commanded armies under Caribbean sun now sat alone in a mountain cell built for European winters, thousands of miles from everything he had built. Napoleon reportedly ordered strict conditions, fearing Toussaint's influence even from a prison cell. Letters Toussaint wrote from Fort de Dieu, some of which survive today, show a man pleading for basic humanity, warmer clothing, food, information about his family, pleas that were largely ignored. On April 7, 1803, Toussaint Louverture died in that cell. The official record points to pneumonia, worsened by cold, poor food, and the harsh conditions of his imprisonment. He never saw Saint-Domingue again. He never learned what would happen to the freedom he had spent more than a decade defending. Here is the turn that gives this story its full weight. Toussaint's death did not end the revolution, it transformed it. His former general, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, took command of what remained of the resistance. French losses from disease and combat had already devastated Leclerc's army. Leclerc himself died of yellow fever months before Toussaint did. Dessalines pushed the remaining French forces into a final, decisive defeat. On January 1, 1804, less than a year after Toussaint died alone in a French prison, Haiti declared its independence. It became the first nation in the world founded through a successful uprising of enslaved people, and the second independent nation in the Americas. Toussaint never lived to see that flag raised. That is the piece of this story that stays with people the longest, the man who built the foundation for freedom, died believing, as far as we know from his final letters, that everything he had accomplished might be undone. Historians still debate parts of Toussaint's legacy, his labor policies during his years in power, his complicated relationship with the free-colored elite, the compromises he made to hold a fractured colony together. None of that debate erases what the surviving evidence makes clear: a man born enslaved organized and led one of the only successful large-scale uprisings against slavery in modern history. And he did it against three of the most powerful empires on earth. If this kind of history, real people, real stakes, real consequences, is something you want to keep exploring, there's more of it ahead, told the same way, carefully, and true to what the evidence actually shows. Fort de Dieu still stands today in the mountains of eastern France. Visitors can see the cell where Toussaint spent his final months. It is a small, cold room, nothing like the world he came from and nothing like the nation his fight helped create. But a few hundred miles across the Atlantic, in the country his final campaign made possible, his name is not forgotten. Streets, schools, and monuments across Haiti carry it still. Toussaint Louverture never asked to be a symbol. He asked, in his own words from that mountain prison, simply to be treated as a man. In the end, the empire he built was not made of land or armies. It was made of an idea he refused to abandon, even when everything else was taken from him, and that idea outlived the cell, the mountain, and the man who died inside it.